Ever get that feeling like there's just this massive list of things you should be doing for, sustainable living?
Oh, definitely. It can feel like a lot. Where do you even begin?
Right. Well, you've sent us some really fascinating material, and today we're going to zero in on one area that has surprisingly big ripple effects.
Eating less meat, right? And how that connects to basically everything else in sustainability.
Exactly. The sources you shared lay out that interconnectedness really well.
Yeah, and our mission here isn't to add more to that feeling of overwhelm. It's more about pulling out the key stuff.
Showing you how these changes can be good for you, personally, and also, well, pretty vital for the planet.
Precisely. Let's make it make sense.
Okay, let's dive right in then. The big picture.
Hmm.
How much does eating meat actually impact the planet? We hear bits and pieces, but what's the core issue?
Well, what's really eye-opening is just the sheer scale of it.
Yeah.
Your sources talk a lot about greenhouse gas emissions.
Right, the climate change connection.
Exactly. And livestock, particularly cows, they produce a lot of methane.
Which is a really potent greenhouse gas, isn't it? More than CO2 in the
More-
short term.
Much more potent, yeah. And get this. The sources state that meat and dairy farming account for somewhere between 14, maybe up to 18% of all global greenhouse gas emissions.
Wait, 14 to 18% globally?
Uh-huh. And to put that into perspective,
Yeah.
that's more emissions than every single car, truck, plane, and ship on the planet combined.
Wow. Okay, that framing, that really hits differently.
Right. It means, like, your steak dinner potentially has a bigger greenhouse gas footprint than your commute.
That's huge. It's not just some small factor then.
Not at all. It's a massive piece of the climate puzzle.
And then there's a whole deforestation thing, especially, you hear about the Amazon.
Right.
How direct is that link between our plates and, well, disappearing forests?
It's pretty direct, unfortunately. The global demand for meat is a major driver for clearing vast areas of forest.
Why exactly? Just for the cows to graze?
Well, yes, partly for grazing land, but also, importantly, land to grow the crops needed to feed the animals. Think massive amounts of soy, for instance.
Ah, okay, so it's a double whammy on land use.
Exactly. And forests are crucial, right? They act like the planet's lungs, absorbing carbon dioxide.
So when we cut them down.
We release all that stored carbon, and we lose that natural capacity to soak up future emissions. So the connection is clear. Less demand for meat means less pressure to chop down these vital ecosystems.
Okay. And it's not just land, is it? Water usage is another big one I saw mentioned. I mean, that statistic was kind of shocking.
The 1,800 gallons.
Yeah, roughly 1,800 gallons of water for just 1 pound of beef.
It really makes you question how we're using our resources, doesn't it? Compare that to plant-based foods.
Like vegetables, grains.
Right. Their water footprint is dramatically lower. That 1,800 gallons for beef, I mean, that's enough water for dozens and dozens of showers.
Puts it in perspective, choosing more plant-based meals really does take a load off our freshwater supplies.
A significant load, yeah.
And the impact isn't just the amount of water used, but also the quality of the water that's left right.
Absolutely. That's another key point. Animal agriculture can be a major source of water pollution.
How so?
Well, think about animal waste, manure lagoons, and also fertilizer runoff from the fields growing animal feed.
Okay, yeah.
All that stuff can contaminate rivers, lakes, even coastal ocean areas. It harms aquatic life, can lead to algal blooms.
And potentially impact human health downstream, too.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
So cutting back on meat production directly helps towards having cleaner water.
Okay, so the planetary impacts are pretty sobering, honestly. Significant. But it's not all doom and gloom, because the sources also highlight compelling reasons for us as individuals to maybe rethink our meat intake. Let's shift to those health benefits.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting on a personal level. There's a growing body of research connecting diets lower in red and processed meats with a lower risk of some major chronic diseases.
Like what kinds of diseases?
Your sources mention heart disease, certain types of cancer, type 2 diabetes, even stroke.
Wow, those are some of the big ones.
They really are. And it's often not about total deprivation, It's more about making space on your plate for other things.
More plant-based foods.
Yeah, exactly. Which naturally tend to be higher in fiber, vitamins, antioxidants, all good stuff.
So it's partly what you're adding in, not just what you're reducing.
That's a great way to put it. But there's also the aspect of avoiding potential downsides.
Like antibiotic resistance. That's something I saw mentioned. And honestly, it's not the first thing I connect with my burger.
Right. But it's a really critical link. The heavy use of antibiotics in industrial animal farming is a huge contributor to this growing global problem,
Why are they used so much in farming?
often to promote faster growth and also to prevent diseases spreading in, well, often crowded conditions in factory farms.
Okay.
The major worry is that when bacteria are constantly exposed to these antibiotics, they evolve resistance.
Making the antibiotics less effective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Less effective for treating infections in humans. We're seeing more and more superbugs that are resistant to our best medicines. It's a serious public health threat.
So choosing meat produced with fewer antibiotics or just eating less meat overall can help combat that threat.
It's one piece of the puzzle, definitely. Reducing demand lessens the pressure for those intensive farming practices.
That's a really powerful point. And one more angle on the human side, global food security. How does eating less meat help feed more people? It feels a bit counterintuitive at first.
It does, but it comes down to efficiency. Think about it. A huge proportion of the world's crops, like corn and soy,
Yeah.
aren't eaten directly by people. They're grown specifically to feed livestock.
Right. Feed for the animals.
So growing plants, feeding them to animals, and then eating the animals. It's like an energy conversion process with big losses at each step.
Compared to just eating the plants ourselves.
Exactly. If we used more of that agricultural land and those resources to grow food directly for human consumption, we could, theoretically, feed many more people with less environmental impact.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about resource allocation.
Fundamentally, yes.
So we've got these compelling arguments stacking up planetary health, personal health, even global food systems. Now, let's zoom out a bit. How does this focus on diet fit into the broader picture of sustainable living? Because it's clearly more than just food, right?
Absolutely. It's a crucial piece, but still just one piece.
Mhm.
The sources you sent rightly frame this eco-friendly diet, eating more plants, maybe supporting local or organic farms, maybe even growing a bit yourself
Yeah.
as one key pillar of a sustainable lifestyle.
Yeah.
But it's deeply interconnected with everything else.
Like the principles are the same.
Exactly. Think about why an eco-friendly diet is sustainable. Lower greenhouse gas emissions, less land use, less water use, reduced pollution.
Okay.
Those same goals, resource efficiency, minimizing waste, reducing harmful outputs, they apply across the board.
Right. So what are some of those other big areas of sustainable living we should keep in mind?
Well, the sources give a good overview. Energy efficiency is huge.
Like how we power our homes?
Yeah, switching to renewable energy where possible,
Hmm.
using energy-efficient appliances, making sure your home is properly insulated, even simple things like turning off lights and unplugging electronics you're not using, LEDs instead of old bulbs.
Makes sense. What else?
Waste reduction is another big one, going beyond just basic recycling.
Like composting.
Composting food scraps, absolutely, but also actively trying to reduce single-use plastics. Bringing your own bags, coffee cups, maybe trying to repair items instead of immediately replacing them.
The whole reduce, reuse, repair, recycle idea.
Pretty much, yeah. Then there's sustainable transportation.
Okay, how we get around.
Definitely. Walking or biking more for short trips, using public transport, carpooling if you can, and obviously considering electric or hybrid vehicles if that's an option for you. It all adds up.
And our consumption habits in general. What we buy.
That's key too. Conscious consumption. Thinking about what we buy and why. Maybe choosing secondhand first.
Supporting ethical businesses.
Supporting businesses that align with your values, yeah. Choosing quality over quantity, things that last longer. Maybe even embracing a bit more minimalism generally.
And water conservation comes up again too, doesn't it? Beyond just the food connection.
Absolutely. Being mindful in our homes, fixing leaks quickly, those drips add up.
Water-saving shower heads and toilets.
Things like that, yeah. Collecting rainwater in barrels for gardening, that's feasible where you live. Just being aware of daily usage.
And finally, protecting natural spaces themselves.
Crucial. Supporting conservation organizations, maybe participating in local park or river cleanups, even things like planting trees or creating pollinator-friendly gardens. It all contributes to ecological health.
Okay, wow. Hearing it all laid out, it can still feel like, well, a lot to tackle.
Yeah.
How do you approach all this without just freezing up?
That is such an important question, and the key takeaway from your sources, I think, is progress, not perfection.
Right. It's not all or nothing.
Definitely not. It's about incorporating more sustainable habits gradually, finding what works for you. And remember that quick fact you shared earlier.
The one about a 25% reduction in meat consumption.
Yeah. Even a collective 25% reduction globally could have significant positive impacts. That shows that relatively small shifts, when adopted widely, really do add up.
So thinking about maybe doing meatless Mondays or trying a few more vegetarian recipes each week, that isn't just some tiny isolated choice.
Not at all. It's actually a really accessible and, as we've seen, pretty impactful entry point into that whole broader sustainable lifestyle we've been talking about.
It connects directly to so many of those bigger issues.
Precisely. Climate, water, land use, even health and fairness.
Okay, so just to sort of wrap this up, reducing meat consumption looks like it offers some pretty clear wins, multiple wins actually,
Yeah, across the board.
for the planet.
Yeah.
We're talking fewer greenhouse gases, less strain on land, less strain on water, less pollution.
Check, 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 and check.
For us personally, potentially lower risks for some major diseases, plus helping tackle that scary antibiotic resistance problem.
Big personal benefits there, yeah.
And then there's the connection to global food security and how it just fundamentally aligns with all those other sustainable practices: energy, waste, water, consumption.
Exactly. You see how they're not really separate issues? They're all tangled together. Our food choices send ripples through the whole system. Environment, society, our own bodies.
It really is all interconnected.
It truly is.
So maybe here's a final thought for you listening right now. Just consider, what if you made one or two small shifts, whether it's trying that veggie chili recipe next week or maybe being more diligent about turning off lights or taking shorter showers?
Just one or two things.
How could those small steps, combined with others, start contributing to a larger positive change? And what else might you discover if you keep exploring these links between your choices, your own well-being, and the future of our shared planet?